From the beautiful campus of Casper College, it's the T-Birds Coaches Show, bringing you game breakdowns, expert analysis, and exclusive interviews. Here's your host, Tom Myler.
Welcome, T-Bird fans, to, of course, another fantastic Casper College Coach Show, because once again, Coach Tom Parks, head of the men's basketball team, welcome again to our domain.
Thank you.
It's always fun to have you here and talk basketball. Of course, goof around with you beforehand, and of course, goof around with you during the show.
For sure.
And, I mean, we'll goof around a little bit, but we also got to be a little serious and talk about what happened that first game against, I mean, you travel 13 hours to North Idaho. I know, and in your defense, it was a 13-hour road trip. This is your third time playing the same team. What happened?
Yeah, well, I was expecting that question. I mean, I think you said it best when you said played them a third time. I think we went into that game as if we beat these guys twice, like we could do this again. And North Idaho went into that game, was like, we lost to these guys twice, like we can't lose this game. And I think from the jump, I think you could tell that their mentality, the way that they approached that game was different than the way that we approached the game. And so I think first and foremost was just like our mentality going into that game. It is tough to beat a team three times, but I think it's tough because of like the factor that I just said. You know, I think we had went in like we got this, like we already beat them twice. When in all reality, like the first two games were very competitive games. It wasn't like anybody just ran away with the game. So yeah, I just think they set the tone from an intensity standpoint. I mean, they were definitely focused. They had a really good game plan. You know, they slowed us down quite a bit, and it didn't help. We struggled scoring the ball, which when we struggle scoring, it doesn't allow us to play at the pace we want to play at because the press kind of dictates that, and we do that off made baskets. So it's kind of hard to create that pace when the ball's not going through the hoop for us. So.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point that you made about the press, because you like that up-tempo and kind of putting pressure on them to make things happen. And if you're not scoring baskets, you can't do your press, and then your whole game plan is kind of out of sync. And I guess with that same thing, the question is, how do you make adjustments if your entire game plan is just not working?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really stubborn, to be honest, like in the sense that, especially early on, I think that the most important thing is to continue to improve on, you know, your system and the way that you want to play, and to try to create an identity for your team. I think there's some parts of the season and the year when you just need to win the game, and sometimes that might mean going away from what you do, depending on how an opponent is and what they're good at. You know, we play some teams that are much more comfortable attacking the press, so we've talked about it before, like, you know, we may drop off the press late in halves just so a team doesn't, you know, go on a crazy run, because it is a system that can allow a team to go on a run really, really fast, whether that's us or another team. Some teams are a lot less comfortable going against it, and so we'll stay in it. But, I mean, right now, yeah, I mean, we're trying to really get good at those things and playing fast. And so if this were like a late postseason game, I think we probably would have made just a few different adjustments just to try to win the game. But I just feel like those reps and practicing those things are really important right now.
Got it. Yeah, so you're still in that mindset of, hey, it's still early. I need to create this identity for the team. They need those reps.
Right, exactly.
Which, I mean, that's absolutely a great thing, because even talking with Coach Canary, it's, you know, these games matter,
right,
but not really. It's come January that's like, hey, it's focus time.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that's it's funny you said that, because I was watching some film before I came over here, and I think all teams right now, they're trying to get really good at whatever their identity is. Like, they're trying to get really good at the things that that they feel like are the most important things in their system. But when you do that, I mean, you only have a certain amount of time every week to practice, you know, especially when you're playing all these games. I mean, that, you know, we didn't really have much practice time, and that's not an excuse. It's just we played Friday, Saturday, Monday. You know, we get on the bus Wednesday morning, so we practice after 12 hours there. We had a very light practice Tuesday because we had played 3 games in 4 days. We hadn't had a normal practice in like a week and a half, and that's difficult in this time of year when you still have a lot of things that you're not very good at, and every team again is trying to spend probably the most amount of time trying to become great at whatever it is that their identity is, but then there's a lot of areas that are lacking. And I think for us, there were some things that were exposed this weekend, which, again, I think that's an important thing to happen at this time in the year, is for you to really figure out, like, man, we need to spend a lot more time on some of these other things.
Well, let's talk about practice then here, since we brought it up a little bit. And it's funny because we also talked about practice with Coach Canary. Apparently practice is an important thing. Yeah. How do you, I guess, optimize or use to max ability these practices when you're having, 3 games in 4 days and have to do a light practice because of it? How do you maximize the utility of those? Well,
I can tell you, it's always nice being at home. And so I think this week helps because I feel like we can have the practices that we need to have. I'm not really a fan of like light practices. Even the day before a game, I worked for people who would practice on game days, and like we do a shoot around, but they would do some competitive things on game days, just again to try to get them in the flow. I don't take it to that extreme. Mm-hmm. I'm probably just too soft and worry about someone getting injured on a game day or something, 6 hours before tip off. But I would say, like, we want our practices to be really tough. Again, I think we try to dedicate the majority of our time to the things that we are really trying to become great at: our pace, playing fast on offense, pressing. We spend a lot of time on our press in practice. And when we spend time on our press in practice, it creates that pace in practice. So our practices are pretty difficult from that standpoint. But, we got our butts kicked in the Jamboree against New Mexico. They just, they denied everyone on the court. They were really physical guarding the ball, and we turned it over a ton of times. So, like, we came back to practice that week, and we tried to, as best we could, emulate New Mexico Junior College. We couldn't do it to what they do it because that is their identity, and they do those things every day. And so we came back and we beat each other up for a week, and we got better in those areas. But, this week it's going to be a lot of defense and not really so much like our press. Yes, we need to keep making adjustments and try to guard it different ways depending on how somebody's going to attack it. But it's also, we can't just press and then a team breaks it and then we play no defense. And that's a big thing that happened this weekend is we rely so much on our press that when you play a team a third time, like, they have a lot of stuff figured out by that time. If you notice the first 10 minutes of the North Idaho game, they turned it over like crazy against us the first time at home. And then, like, they probably barely turned it over this last time. I don't know what the stat sheet said, but I don't remember very many turnovers. And not only did they not turn it over, but they figured out where to put guys. And we didn't make the adjustments we needed to because we had success in the first couple games doing it. And so, we got to figure out different ways to make adjustments in that, depending on how a team's going to attack it.
So you brought up defense. This first game, you gave 105 points. I think the second game, you also gave up 105 points. But the second game, your offense was on fire. You were shooting. Abdul had 39 points. Aaron Sievert had 22 points. All sorts of, it was a great spread across the team. Yeah. And so you had like 139. But something tells me you don't necessarily want to be giving up an average of 100 points a game.
No, and that's, and that's something I feel like we did a much better job. And that's the weird, like, ebb and flow of a basketball season is you do a good job at something. I thought our defense was a lot better the weekend before. And again, our pace, like, we're going to give up 80 points. Like, we might give up 90 points. I'm okay if we win a game 110 to 90. But, but it also depends on the opponent. And there was no defense played in that entire game on either team. Yeah. And I think, Coach Tate would probably agree to that. I was trying to figure out if 130. I was trying to have some like positivity. I was trying to figure out if 139 points was the record set here, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh man.
So we'll have to dig into the archives. But I think we just have to understand that teams are going to break the press, and then we're going to have to guard somebody, and that's also what happened against Monroe. Like, Monroe did a really good job breaking the press. And then it was like, oh, shoot, how do we play defense in the half court? And so, and it's one of those things like we felt like we were good at it. So you kind of go away with it to work on some of the things that you think you need to improve on. Then all of a sudden you get exposed on something that you haven't spent time on, like half court defense. So yesterday, we only played defense. You know, I mean, obviously, like there's an offensive side of the ball, but the entire focus was defense. And we need to continue that, because if we get stops and we can run, everything's so connected. We get stops and can run, we're going to score. And then we can get in our press, you know. But, like, if we're not getting stops and a defense can go set up, we're going to have a harder time scoring, which, again, is going to be a harder time for us to get in our press and play the way we want to play. So it's all connected, and our guys got to understand that.
Yeah, man, it really is. It's all connected, and it's interesting, too, that you and Coach Canary have both said the same thing, where in practice you focus on one fundamental, and then you're like, oh, this is good, and then you slowly work it to something else, and then the one that you've been working on so hard is just, hey, didn't we work on this? What happened to it?
We should have a dual coaches show, you know?
Oh, yeah?
Coach Canary and myself, we can share a microphone. But, you know.
Oh, we got you. We can get another one.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I try to pick his brain as much as possible, and occasionally he'll ask me a question, but he's very good at what he does, and he's been through a lot of different situations. And, you know, there's a number of times, probably every week, that I'll just walk in there and be like, hey, well, what would you do in this situation? You know, I think it's a great resource to have that's like 7 feet from you, you know?
Very true. So overall this weekend, what would you say would be your favorite moment?
Favorite moment would probably be Nate Sasser in the Miles City game. I know it's an individual kind of moment or success, but, you know, Nate Sasser is probably one of the fastest players in the country. He's probably one of the most athletic in terms of his jumping ability and his quickness. Mm-hmm. You know, at 6'5", 6'6", his ability to handle the basketball is extremely impressive. And I took him out of the game. Well, the first game, you know, I thought his effort was just okay. And I think he started the game sometimes where his effort hasn't been great. And, you know, we obviously get our butts kicked, you know, that game. We talked about it. And so Nate Sasser's in my room, and we're talking after the game for a while. They were like dropping off their laundry, and we were talking for a while. And I said something like, he asked me, like, how do I play harder, this and that? And I was like, well, sometimes you're just jogging out there. Like, you have to sprint. And he said something like, well, coach, if I can jog and get to where I need to be, like, why would I, like, kind of waste my energy to sprint? And I was like, I mean, that's, I guess, a fair question, but I'm like, I mean, the game of basketball happens fast. Like, the moment you're jogging, someone can make a skip pass, and that could have been your rotation that you have to sprint to. But, and so, like, I addressed that question. The next day, he started off slow again. And he didn't really start off slow, but he was just very passively attacking the basket. And so we pulled him out, and I'm like, just go by them. Like, they can't keep you in front. Just go. And he just went out there and he just had a different gear. Steven Osei sprained his ankle late in the North Idaho game, so he didn't play on Friday against Miles. And Ben got in foul trouble, and we're searching for – and Yell got in foul trouble. And so, like, I know Sasser's not going to like that, you know, he was a backup 5 for us. I mean, we played all on the perimeter, but no one could guard him. And he was very important in a few different runs. I mean, I know it was a 33-point win, but the game was a lot closer than that. I mean, we kind of like extended. I mean, I think I was talking to Ethan when we were up 20, and all of a sudden I look up and we have 139 points, and I was like, when did this happen? Like, I mean, it was just very fast. Abdul was a big part of that, but Nate Sasser, I thought, from a confidence standpoint, really got himself going. He's a really talented basketball player, and sometimes I just feel like he's okay with just being there if we need him, instead of like being a guy that like we can depend on every single night, you know, to score the basketball and to get in the paint. So it was nice to see him, because I just thought he was moving differently. I thought he was playing with a chip on his shoulder. I thought he was playing a lot harder. I thought he was playing with a lot more confidence on the offensive end.
Man, that really is a great moment to see one of your players like, I knew you could do this all along. Right. Thank you for finally figuring it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it was kind of an aha moment, and I think he felt that way too. And so excited to see him build off of that. And then, honestly, the same thing happened last year with him. I don't know what it is, but like, he's Nate Sasser is always walking around with a smile on his face. He's a very chill, relaxed kind of guy, very lighthearted. And like, it's almost like I like when he gets mad, because like when he gets mad, he just plays differently, and I don't want to like piss him off by any means, but part of me kind of does, because like I just get a little bit different Nate Sasser. And so he same kind of start last year, and he had, I can't remember what game it was, but he had like an aha moment. I think it was actually North Idaho at home last year, and all of a sudden like we couldn't get anything from anybody, and all of a sudden Nate Sasser's like getting to the rim every time. So I'm excited to see him build off of that.
Yeah, me too. And our T-Bird fans here are going to be excited because you're here at home Friday, Saturday. Our Thanksgiving Classic's always a fun one. You've got first game, Lake Region State College, which looking up them, I couldn't really get – well, I couldn't get any information on them. So hopefully you've got some sort of scouting report. What can we expect with this game?
I mean, they have a bunch of guys who can drive the basketball and shoot. They mostly play man-to-man. They might play a little bit of zone. Leading scorer is a 6-foot guard that's averaging about 18 a game.
Wow. Okay.
But again, he's shot a number of threes. I think he's shot over 70 threes on the year. But he also can get downhill. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, they've played a fairly difficult schedule. They beat Williston. They lost to Miles. But again, it's hard. You can't really look at who beats who. And it doesn't – I know people like to think that, like, well, this team beat them, so you guys should be just fine. And it's like, it's not really how basketball works. I mean, teams just have different systems, different personnel, different matchups that, again, can clash with certain opponents. So, I mean, I know that they weren't healthy for a long time, but it looks like they got everyone back. They have – a decent amount of size. They start like a 6'10" kid who's a sophomore for them. He's pretty skilled. He's a good shot blocker. And then they have like a big, strong 6'6" kid. I think he's like 230 pounds, who's a phenomenal offensive rebounder. He's got over 30 offensive rebounds on the year. It's over 3 a game. Wow. So, I mean, they have some interesting pieces that we definitely need to lock in. But it'll be nice to be playing at home and a classic that I feel like is usually pretty well attended in the Casper area. So it'll be fun to be back here and play in the Thanksgiving Classic. And I believe these are our last 2 home games of the break, or before the break. So we'll definitely need to capitalize on that and hopefully give the hometown fans some stuff to look forward to, for second semester when we really start up with conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. So against this Lake Region State College, what's going to be your key factor in having a good result against them?
Well, I mean, I hate to do this to you, but you know what I'm going to say. I just like I want to stay true to who we are, but I really want to see us, play defense in the half court. I think rebounding will be big. I think they do have, like I said, a 6'10", a 6'6" kid, but they have a lot of small guards that they play. And so I think we really need to dominate the glass on both ends of the floor. I thought that was something that I don't know if our guys realize how important rebounding is, especially the offensive end. I mean, I think we've shown signs of being a really good rebounding team. I mean, that was the thing with the second time we played North Idaho. So we had 23 offensive rebounds. And, I'm sure they wanted to believe that Abdul's 45 points or this and that is the reason that we won that game. But, I mean, we won the game because we attacked the offensive glass.
Yeah,
we got
second chances.
And that's, again, I think that's why, our field goal percentage struggles so much, is like we weren't getting second opportunities on Thursday night against North Idaho. And so I think, again, locking into rebounding and the importance of rebounding and again, just playing half-court defense and continue to try to play the game that we want to play fast and get up and down.
So something tells me you're going to be repetitive and talk about that again with McCook that you play on Saturday. Is that something?
I don't know anything about McCook. I don't. I mean, they've got a new coach. They've beat some good teams. They've probably lost to some teams that they think they should have beaten. I've seen very little on them so far. We'll kind of dive into them a little bit more in the next couple of days. But again, just really trying to focus on Lake Region because we play them first. We'll get a chance to see McCook live, which will be good. It's always a good thing to see someone live. They don't score a ton, but, they limit their opponents. And then they've played they haven't played like some fluff games against JV teams and things like that. They've played a decent schedule. I think they played Garden City twice. They beat them once, which they're usually pretty good in Kansas. I believe they beat Dodge City, which has had some good teams.
LCCC, so they lost to Eastern.
They lost to Eastern, yeah. So, I mean, I think they're going to be a competitive team. How they play and what they do, I have no idea. So,
well, it sounds like that's been a theme lately with a couple of teams, which is unfortunate. But how do you prepare? And I asked Coach Gennari this too, but how do you prepare for a quick turnaround? So you have to prepare your team, obviously, for that first game, because if you don't get past the first game, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But then to have a quick turnaround, play that second game, how are you preparing them, I guess, ultimately for both?
I mean, I think for our program specifically, I mean, we spend the first few days really preparing for the first opponent. And then Coach Dion and myself will start watching, more of McCook probably tomorrow. And that way, like, if we need to sneak some more stuff into practice on Thursday, that, our tendencies, for example, if we find out McCook sets a lot of ball screens, we might really work on a lot more ball screen defense on Thursday, just so we've done it. Or if there's something, a lot of programs are very similar in what they do, but occasionally you'll play a team like Northwest, that will run all these crazy motion continuities, and that would be something I would hate to prepare for on a quick turnaround. So I would try to sneak some of that stuff in, either Wednesdays and Thursdays practice, even if the team doesn't know that it's for McCook or for whoever that second opponent is, just to make sure that they have some understanding of what's going on the second day. But a lot of it is honestly like the film and the walkthrough, the day of the game, and just in the scouting report, and just making sure that they understand personnel, But I've just always been a believer that you focus on yourself more than somebody else, that we have so many things that we need to continue to improve on. And regardless what some team runs, like, we need to be in the right positioning on defense. Like, we need to close out with high hands. We need to guard the ball. Like, it doesn't matter what they do. We still need to do all those things. So, and I think we do have a system that's kind of hard for teams to break a press and then run through their stuff. But, if we see McCook plays a lot of zone, like, we need to spend obviously more time than just Saturday morning running through zone stuff for 30 minutes. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach, for coming in and kind of giving us a layout of last week's games and what we can look forward to. T-Bird fans, they are at home, so eat your pumpkin pie, stuff your face with turkey, but make sure to come attend at the Suite Friday, Saturday for some great basketball. So we will see you then.